Barnaby's, Shop Till You Drop. Episode 14, Employee Appreciation Day. Have you seen Bob? What about Lisa? I must say that to my cashiers at least 50 times a day. Now, you have to understand that Bob and Lisa are not real people, they're acronyms. For those of you that don't know what an acronym is, it's a word or a name. Sometimes it's just a bunch of letters that's created from taking the first letter, sometimes two letters of a word, in a phrase, and putting them together, in order, creating the acronym. Such as Bob, which stands for bottom of basket, or Lisa, which means look inside always. Get it? Anyway, it's just something that companies do to make themselves sound cool, I guess. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. The weirdest acronym I've ever seen at a grocery store was DYFEYWLF. I saw it at one of those big name stores about a year ago. It took me a while to figure out what it meant, and I've been doing this for over 15 years. You got any ideas? Go ahead, give it a try. You may have a future in the grocery business. I'll tell you what it means at the end of the story. Anyway, hi, I'm Candy, short for Candace. I'm the ACSSM here at Barnaby's. Look at that, another acronym. Anyway, it stands for Assistant Customer Service and Sales Manager, which means I'm in charge of customer service, obviously, as well as all the cashiers, the office people, and any money, checks, WIC vouchers, and food stamp purchases that come through the registers. My friends call me Bubbles, because of my happy and chipper disposition. It annoys some people, especially in the morning, if they haven't had enough coffee yet. I don't drink coffee, I'm more of an energy drink kind of person. Anyway, that's not important. Now, I'm sure you all know that Barnaby's is a very old store. We don't have one of those cash counting machines or a change weighing machine like the big name stores do. No. We have to count all the money by hand. Then write it down on a log sheet and file it away in a large file cabinet in the office. Anyway, another one of my jobs, which I volunteered for, is employee relations. That means, I try to keep all the employees as happy as possible. With all the horrible things that happen here, it's not a very easy job to do. Anyway, we offer a 10% discount on all employee purchases, except tobacco and alcohol. We offer free coffee, and have casual Friday every week, among other things. Most of the employees like wearing their own clothes to work, instead of this boring uniform. However, some customers have complained about all those ugly heavy metal t-shirts that Ricky wears every week, but that's a different story. Oh, hold on a second, the phone's ringing. Good afternoon, thank you for choosing Barnaby's. How may I help you? Yes ma'am, we are open. Yes ma'am, we do sell milk. No ma'am, we can't change the oil in your car. You would need a mechanic for that, not a grocery store. Okay, thanks for calling, have a good day. Bye bye. You can't even imagine all the stupid questions I get asked by these customers. It's ridiculous. Anyway, the best part of my job is planning Employee Appreciation Day. You see, there's a carnival that comes to town for about a week, every summer, and uses the large field behind the store to set up shop. Pat lets them use the field for free, in exchange for allowing employees and their families to get in for free, and ride all the rides for free, with proper identification of course. Everyone has a great time. Well, they did, until this past summer. It was mid-June, about 8 months ago. Pat brought in temps from the temp agency to cover the boost in sales we get during this week. I was on call, in case something major happened. Anyway, it was a bright sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. The carnival had rolled into town a few days earlier, complete with their food stands, kid rides, adult rides, game booths, a petting zoo, and various other carnival rides and animal attractions. This year, they even had a huge Ferris wheel. This thing must have been about 400 feet tall. It was monstrous. I've never seen one that big. Anyway, it was about 2 in the afternoon, everything was going great. People were smiling, laughing, and having a good time. Jim and his family were enjoying a funnel cake under the big oak tree. Marcus and his girlfriend were walking hand in hand down the midway. Stuart, Stephen and Zeke were standing in line together to ride that pirate ship ride. Pat volunteered himself for that Dunk Your Boss game. He was soaking wet. It was hilarious. Anyway, Reggie, the town sheriff, who still hasn't stepped foot on the property, he was hanging out in his patrol car, eating donuts. Melanie and her girlfriend were chowing down on some chicken by the merry-go-round. Tommy and his girlfriend were enjoying an ice cream cone together. It looked like that scene from Lady and the Tramp. Tanya was off on the side of the building, talking to the flowers, or talking to herself. You never know with her. Jimmy was hanging out with the kids over at the petting zoo. He truly loves animals. Winston was videotaping everything, because that's what he does. Ricky and one of our regular customers were walking around with headphones on, playing air guitar and air drums. They looked ridiculous. Ricky had that little chick he found on a leash. It was waddling behind them, but that's a different story. Various other employees were scattered around, enjoying the festivities. There were kids walking around with huge stuffed animals, young lovers holding hands eating cotton candy, old folks sitting on benches, watching the crowd, while the carnival jingles and animal noises echoed in the background. It was truly magical. Anyway, I was in the merchandising booth. Pat, being the entrepreneur that he is, decided to have t-shirts, baseball caps, coffee cups, keychains, things of that sort, printed up. We were selling them for $5 a shot. They said things like, "Barnaby careful, I survived Barnaby's," and "Barnaby's, shop till you drop." That was our biggest seller. People were buying these things left and right. We could hardly keep up. We did so well with it all, that Pat decided to sell them in the store, on a regular basis. Come on by and pick yours up today. Anyway, as I said, everything was going great. Suddenly, all the animals started acting strangely, like they knew something was gonna happen. All the horses at the pony ride started jumping around and kicking, bucking the riders off their backs. Then they took off, running through the field, in a wild frenzy. One lady's foot got caught in the stirrups, and was dragged about 50 yards. She was a bloody mess. But she was okay though. The cows all laid down and began mooing wildly. The bulls began snorting, like demons ready to strike. The chickens were running around like their heads were cut off. They were all going crazy. It was quite disturbing. Everyone just stopped and stared at the barns. Suddenly, we heard what sounded like a sonic boom. You know, the sound a plane makes when it breaks the sound barrier. The vibration from the sound was so intense, that it shook the ground violently, causing several people to fall to the ground, several tents and small buildings collapsing as well, crushing the people inside. The sky turned dark gray, as the wind picked up drastically, growing more intense with every passing moment. Dust and debris was flying everywhere. The carnival workers tried desperately to stop the rides and remove the riders. The on-the-ground rides were somewhat successful, only a few injuries there. But the off-the-ground rides were not so lucky, as the wind blew harder, with a force I can only describe as that of a tornado. The pirate ship ride was caught in full swing, and was ripped completely off its base, and sent soaring into the sky. The screams of the passengers still haunt me in my sleep. After whirling through the air for a few seconds, it finally came crashing down upon the ground, crushing and killing all the passengers aboard, and injuring many people on the ground. It was horrifying. People were running and screaming, heading to their cars, or into the store. They were jumping over the injured people, and the dead bodies to save themselves. The wind was blowing so hard that it launched several people into the air, and slammed them into trees, carnival rides, and the back of the store. Lightning bolts began to hit the ground, as the thunder roared on. It never rained though, which was odd. Anyway, I hid behind an old propane tank connected to the funeral home next door. Thank God it wasn't struck by lightning. Anyway, now that I think about it, there were no animals injured or killed during all of this. The storm never touched the barns or the petting zoo. All the animals were alive and accounted for, which was very odd, but a good thing nonetheless. Anyway, from my point of view, I could see that the midway was totally demolished. Dead bodies lay amidst the twisted metal, and bloody stuffed animals. I watched in complete horror, as the merry-go-round began spinning extremely fast from the wind. It broke free from its axle, and was launched into the sky, soaring through the air like a frisbee. I heard they found it smashed into an old abandoned house out on Chestnut Street, but that's a completely different story. Anyway, the Ferris wheel began to sway back and forth. People in the top carriages began climbing down the wheel in an attempt to get to safety. But that attempt was useless. A lightning bolt then struck the base of the Ferris wheel, causing it to break free. The wind then pushed it over, and it came crashing down on the back of the store. Barnaby's had been severely damaged. And just like that, it was all over. The wind stopped, the sky was clear again, and the sun came out, like nothing ever happened. I crawled out from behind the propane tank and took a look around. The carnage was devastating. There were dead bodies everywhere, not just dead bodies, but bloody severed pieces of bodies, some with chunks of metal sticking out of them. I didn't even look inside the store. People were bleeding. People were crying. I nearly broke down and cried myself. I pulled myself together and called 911. They said they already had a few reports of what was going on, and ambulances and EMTs were on their way. As I was walking around, helping people up, I noticed something really strange. There was no damage done to any of the surrounding buildings and/or properties. Just Barnaby's. It was like the storm's full intention was to destroy this place. Anyway, the ambulances and EMTs showed up shortly after and tended to the survivors. The cops showed up, except for Reggie, and taped off the property with that yellow tape of theirs. The coroner showed up and gathered up all the dead bodies, as well as the pieces, with that snow shovel-looking thing. Then they all left. I heard later that the body count was in the hundreds. We lost 7 employees that day, as well as a few temps. After everyone had left, I was walking around looking at all the damage, when I noticed Pat, down on his knees, staring at the damaged store, and crying. That was the first time I ever saw that man cry. I went to console him, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw a little Native American boy, standing at the edge of the property. I turned to face him. He bent down, and tapped the ground 3 times, then stood up, and disappeared. I just walked away. Maybe now's not a good time, but I promised that I would tell you what that acronym meant at the beginning of the story. It stands for, Did you find everything you were looking for? Anyway, I drove by the store the next day, and saw Pat out there boarding up the front window. On one of the boards was a sign that read, For sale by owner. A wave of emotion came over me. I pulled my car into an abandoned parking lot, and just sat there, thinking about everything that has happened at that store. Some were good, some were bad, but it was always eventful. There was never a dull moment. 2 weeks later, I drove by, on my way to a job interview, and saw the front window boarded up, but I didn't see the for sale sign. However, I did see another sign, on the front grass. It read, Coming soon. Cartwright Cinema.